Today we're going to be doing part 3 of horror movies that were released this year that you might have missed. I like to do these videos to highlight the smaller independent releases, the movies that just get overshadowed by all the larger releases. Most of these in these videos don't have like theatrical releases, so they're really not known about or really talked about. So I want to highlight them because I feel like these are the true gems of the year. Like, yes, we get the major releases that are great, but we expect them to be great. These ones are the hidden ones, the ones that surprise us. I will link the other 2 parts that I've done already this year down below, and I do 4 movies per video, so now we're gonna be up to 12, and I'll probably do 1 more before the end of the year. And I guarantee there's at least a couple, at least 1 out of all 3 videos I've done so far that you have not seen yet. The first one I wanna start out with today is the most recent release, and the one that like surprised me the most. I wasn't even thinking of putting it in one of these videos because I had no expectation. Actually, I had really bad expectations going into this. I thought it was going to be bad, and that is Apartment 7A. Terry D'Onofrio dreams of fame and fortune in New York City, but after suffering an injury, an older, wealthy couple welcomes her into their home in Bramford. When she receives an offer at another chance at fame, it seems that all her dreams are coming true. However, disturbing circumstances soon have her second-guessing the sacrifices she's willing to make for her career as she realizes that something evil is living not only in Apartment 7A, but in the Bramford itself. This, of course, is the prequel to Rosemary's Baby. It is streaming right now on Paramount Plus. It was just released, and I threw it on, not really having any expectation that I would actually enjoy this movie, and it sucked me in, man. It like grabbed me from the beginning. It doesn't maintain that momentum, and it doesn't keep my attention as long as I wanted it to. Like, it kind of slowed down a little bit for me, but I was still pleasantly surprised by this movie. There were a lot of similarities, of course, to Rosemary's Baby. Some go so far as to say it's just like a remake of Rosemary's Baby, which is not true. Obviously, she is a single woman. There is some implied SA in this, just so you know. Very reminiscent of previous religious horror movies that we've gotten this year. Even, you know, some prequel religious horror movies. Like The First Omen was such a surprise that I absolutely love that movie. It's one of my favorites of the year. Now, the character Terry D'Onofrio that we follow in Apartment 7A is a character in Rosemary's Baby. She lives in the same apartment building and speaks to Rosemary and everything and tells her about this couple. And so that's kind of the parallel between the two. So that's why it's not like a direct remake or anything, but we are following a character that exists within the movie already. So it's kind of it is a prequel, but it's like really close to the movie, the original movie. I'm not sure if you're like a major fan of the original that you would actually like this one. There are a lot of odes to it, but I just don't know if, you know, major fans are going to enjoy this one as much. I was expecting like a really underwhelming fan service type of prequel, and it does kind of do a little bit of fan service in this, of course, but it has to because it's going to give homages and odes to the original movie, but it still surprised me with how much effort was really put into this. I think Julia Garner had a great performance in this. Everything was just very surprising. I was like, is this movie going to be actually really good? It's not really good. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, and it ended up being a lot better than I originally anticipated, which is why I wanted to highlight it and tell you it is worth a watch. And dare I say, it kind of could be its own standalone. I know it's a prequel. I know there's references, but just like The First Omen, I think could be a standalone movie. I feel like Apartment 7A could also kind of stand on its own. So give it a try. I would love to hear your thoughts. I don't think this is going to be one that everyone's going to enjoy, but I do think there's some entertainment value in there. It is yet another religious horror though, so you know, we're getting a little bit of that, but I do think the creativity and the originality of what they do with that religious horror is actually really smart and really cool. Next up, I want to talk about The Exorcism, because I feel like people, again, it's another religious horror movie, I feel like people are kind of not taking The Exorcism, the Pope's Exorcist, Russell Crowe, in exorcism movies very seriously, and they're just kind of like laughing at it a little bit, and maybe that's justified for some scenes, okay? These movies aren't like the greatest that came out of this year by any means, but I don't think they're terrible. I actually really had a lot of fun watching The Pope's Exorcist as well as The Exorcism. So this follows a troubled actor who begins to unravel while shooting a horror film, and his estranged daughter wonders if he's slipping back into his past addictions or if there's something more sinister at play. So this movie was actually filmed prior to The Pope's Exorcist, so this was done first, although because they're both Russell Crowe, I feel like people are comparing the two. I do think if we are comparing, I'm just going to compare for just 1 second. The Pope's Exorcist is a better movie. That one's on Netflix. It is the better movie, I would say, when it comes to religious horror. But I think The Exorcism is actually a better movie when it comes to an original concept around religious horror. I just think The Exorcism is an original concept that hasn't really been done before, and they like modernized the take on filming an exorcism type movie. I don't love the character of the daughter either. I think she's pretty unlikable, which is a character choice. I understand. It's understandable for her character portrayal, why they went that route and had her be kind of unlikable, but overall it was kind of a letdown in the end. Like the ending climax and everything was underwhelming. However, the concept alone I think was really cool, however predictable it is. Again, not the greatest movie to come out of 2024, but I think it is worth a watch for entertainment value, especially in October when you're like trying to watch as many movies as possible. At least most of us are. Throw this one on. It might surprise you. And I do think this is going to be one of those movies that we forget about. It's going to be a forgettable type of movie and we move on from it really, really quickly. If you're a fan of religious horror movies, I think this one will be entertaining for you because it is an original concept. So I say give it a try. Next one is definitely one of my favorites from 2024 in general, and probably my favorite. No, is it my favorite in this video? Maybe. And that is Milk and Serial. Now, this is a very independent, straight to YouTube movie, and it's only an hour long, and it was released independently for free on YouTube, which I think was so smart. It is a found footage movie in the style of a YouTube channel who do pranks. It's a prank YouTube channel, so it's kind of filmed vlog style. I think watching this on YouTube on your phone with headphones is the ideal way to watch this, just FYI. A surprise birthday prank takes a turn for the worse when a popular social media duo must face the reality of the terrifying aftermath. Now, it's not going to be for everyone. It is a very specific type of found footage that maybe not a lot of people enjoy. I loved this experience, but again, as I always say with found footage, take my opinion with a grain of salt because I will enjoy any found footage movie. Like guaranteed, I'll be entertained by it despite however low I may rank a movie. I still enjoy the viewing experience of watching found footage. So this is done by Curry Barker, who's originally a comedian. He has a bunch of other videos here on YouTube as well, but he has dabbled in the horror genre lately. He also released a film, I believe, a shorter film called The Chair, which I have seen people leave comments on my TikTok and things that they like that better than Milk and Serial, so you want to check that out. I haven't watched it yet, but I just thought I'd mention that. I actually really enjoy that they kept it at the hour mark. I do recommend watching through the credits, continue watching, don't turn it off right away when the credits start rolling, but I like that it's like a digestible, like really easy movie to watch, and this movie felt like they packed as much action and twists and turns and horror into a movie, into 1 hour. Like they just packed it full. And for the first 20 minutes of this movie, I was not really enjoying it because it did something that I'm not typically a fan of. So I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy this movie that much. And then there's 3 twists in the short 1 hour movie, and it got me every single time. I never knew where this was going, which is actually really great because this kind of concept could be slightly predictable. A lot of found footage movies in general are pretty predictable, I find. But with this one, I never knew what was happening. There was so much going on all the time. It's so fast paced. It feels like a 30-minute movie in the best way possible, in that it never ends. It's just constantly escalating and gradually just, getting worse and worse. And it was just so good and genuinely terrifying. I found the characters to be very believable. I thought they nailed the roles of these prankster YouTube channel dudes, you know, I just felt like that is who they were. But again, you know me and found footage, I'm gonna like it regardless. But I do think this is one of the better ones, especially from this year. There have been a handful of found footage movies coming out that have already come out this year. This is definitely the best found footage movie I have seen this year. Okay, last but certainly not least for this video, we have Strange Darling. Now this one is probably the best movie in this video and one of the best movies of 2024, period. It was a very different watch for me. It's not something I typically gravitate towards, but because it was an independent release and I just really wanted to support this. Now this did get a limited theatrical release, so I was lucky enough to be able to see it in theaters, and I'm so grateful because it was such an experience. Like, it was so good. Nothing is what it seems when a twisted one-night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree. I think this definitely falls into the category of one of the most unique horror movies that has been released in 2024. And typically in these videos, I wouldn't highlight or spotlight a movie that did get a theatrical release because that tends to be like a wider release. But because this was still an independent movie and there was talk about it, but I feel like not enough. And I just wanted to put it on your radar in case you haven't heard of it or haven't watched it yet, that now's the time. Like, please watch this movie. Now, people compared this to Tarantino movies if he did like a horror movie, and I'm not going to say necessarily why because that's kind of a spoiler and I just feel like you need to know very little about this movie. Like, this is definitely a movie where you should not know anything really going in. In fact, I've probably said too much about it, so if you're planning on watching it, just go in without knowing anything. Just please go watch it. But I will say, I loved the twists and turns in this. I absolutely loved the story and the overall style that this movie was filmed in. Like, I just thought all of it was really effective. It was gruesome, there's violence, it's brutal, but it's still like endearing. Like, the characters are just really interesting people and I found them to be really believable and I loved the performances. It was just so entertaining. Like, it just hooked me and I was like, what is this movie? Like, where are we going? Like, it was kind of a bizarre experience, definitely more mind-bending. And I love movies like that. I love movies that are super mind-bending and you just have no idea what is happening or how we get to certain places. Like, we just don't know really what's going on until a certain point. Love movies like that, and this one's definitely like that. So please prioritize Strange Darling this year if you can. Like, if you have access to it. It is video on demand, I believe. I'm hoping it gets a streaming release because then more people could probably watch it or will watch it. But please prioritize it this year if you can, because I don't think you'll be disappointed. So that's all I have for this video. Of course, I'm already starting a list for the next one because there are just so many great horror movie releases coming out in 2024. It's definitely a standout year. I just keep giving 5 stars away. I'm just like, you get a 5-star and you get a 5-star. Like, it's just such a good year. It's such a good year for horror. We're getting everything. We're being fed. Horror fans are being fed this year. So if you have any other more independent releases or more underrated horror releases that have come out this year that you haven't seen a lot of people talk about, leave it in a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed and I will talk to you soon. Bye.